Hello and welcome to Insight, everyone. I'm Nigerian.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you for joining us.
This episode would examine the legislative agenda of the 10th House of Representatives and how it is expected to thrive in a multi-party democracy. I'd also discuss issues shaping Nigeria's tourism economy and the prospects as a big money spinner. Elizabeth.
And we'll also be reviewing the sidelines of the 2023 Saudi Africa Summit, where President Bola Tinubu underscored Nigeria's commitment to attracting foreign direct investment into the country. And of course, we will analyze agreements signed, benefits, implications, and more importantly, implementation.
Very well then, let's get started. I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
Look into the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate calculated.
Many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
And applications, there are terms and conditions that.
Of course, it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nigerian.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
In most democracies, the practice is to have citizens delegate decision-making competencies to the legislature, whose members, in turn, are accountable to the people. Well, one key action that the parliament here in Nigeria takes in that direction, of course, depending on the majority political party and its leadership, is to have a broad plan outlining its intentions, often described as the legislative agenda. For the 10th House of Representatives, it says its legislative agenda is premised on the notion that the fundamental role of lawmakers is the well-being of their various constituents. Well, let's find out how well the lawmakers hope to run with that. I am joined by Honorable Iduma Nwo Igarowe, member representing Afikpo North and other federal constituents of Ebonyi State. He is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Appropriations, and Chairman, House Ad hoc Committee on Review of Standing Orders. Welcome to Insight, Honorable.
Thank you very much.
Honorable, if I'm not mistaken, you are from the People's Democratic Party. I mean, you're of the PDP, and so, I mean, incidentally, you are in the opposition because APC holds majority there at the House of Representatives. So it would make sense for us to perhaps begin by addressing how the legislative agenda for the 10th House of Representatives, or rather address the presumption that every member and all parties and lawmakers in the House agreed, with the legislative agenda. And I say this knowing because in other climes, maybe not the standard practice, but the practice is that there are incentives for political parties across party line and legislators, to make inputs into the legislative agenda, maybe for a particular legislative year. In this case, we are seeing a situation where all members and all parties are agreeing to a legislative agenda that more or less aligns with the 8-point agenda of the APC-led executive arm of government. So I would like to know how this, agenda was perhaps conceived, and if indeed it has the blessings of all members, irrespective of party affiliation, and how you also agreed or arrived at an aggregate of issues that you outlined in the legislative agenda.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have an 8-point legislative agenda.
That's correct.
But I want to make it very clear that it has nothing to do with the APC 8-point agenda. It's merely coincidental that the items we have, the thematic items we have, we made them into 8 general points. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the 8-point agenda or 10-point agenda of the presidency. There's no nexus at all. The point is,
well, Honorable, sorry to interject here, but it was also made clear 2 weeks, was it 2 weeks Tuesday ago? I think it was a week ago or so, when Speaker Tajuddin unveiled this 8-point agenda. He did also make it very clear that it aligns with the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, and that in fact, it supports the 8-point agenda of Mr. President. Would you just help us put that in proper perspective?
Yes. There can be no doubt that some of the items in our legislative agenda are similar to the items in the executive's agenda. Because at the end of the day, we are talking about Nigeria. At the end of the day, we are talking about issues that concern Nigerians. So there must be some relationship between what we have done as a house and probably what the executive arm have done. But that is not to say that our 8-point agenda is the same thing as the executive's 8-point agenda. There's no nexus whatsoever. Now, the National Assembly, and when I say the National Assembly, I'm talking about the House of Representatives and the Senate. They are a national institution. And the moment we are elected, it is true we came here through various vehicles, APC, PDP, SDP, and all that. But the moment we come here, the moment the president makes his proclamation, as is empowered under Section 64, I think 64(3) of the Constitution, we see ourselves as one house. We don't begin to look at ourselves so much as APC, PDP, and other parties. First and foremost, we see ourselves as a house elected for the good of Nigerians. So that is why it's often not difficult for us also to come together and agree on what we call our legislative agenda. So we are not a state house of assembly. Okay. We know our major function, the key function we have, as defined under Section 4 of the Constitution, is lawmaking. And we are making law for the good of the country. We are not making law specifically for states or local governments. That aspect will come to discuss the representative aspect of our work. But when it comes to lawmaking, we see ourselves first as people who are here to make law for the good of Nigerians.
Okay, great. We have that out of the way now. So, I mean, let's now proceed. And, I mean, maybe it's a good thing that we're seeing this alignment between the executive arm of government and you and the legislature also setting the agenda here. But let me run down some of the key issues contained in the agenda. I mean, some of them, I mean, one talks about strengthening good governance. There's also the issue of economic development. There's improving national security. There's law reforms. There's economic growth and development. Of course, the agenda also raised issues about social sector reforms and development, talks about inclusion and open parliament, and then ends up with talking about influencing foreign policy and climate change as well as environmental sustainability. Well, that's the, that's the bulk of the agenda there. And I also know that the bulk of what you do as lawmakers is to deploy legislative tools to engender policies in these various directions. You and I can agree, Honorable, you and I can agree that a major part of our development challenge stems from lack of commitment and inconsistencies in policy implementation, and not necessarily the absence of policies. I would like for you to tell me something for sure. How can the People's House, I mean, how can you achieve this legislative agenda by first addressing the issues of poor funding of policies and perhaps a lack of continuity in government policies, which are two baseline factors inhibiting national progress?
Well, first and foremost, let me make the point that the legislative agenda is more like a guide. It defines the vision, the mission of the house. Each house that comes in wants to show what they have for the Nigerian people. So that is what we bring down as a legislative agenda. It's to provide direction purpose and framework for legislative action. So we shouldn't look at the legislative agenda as a mandatory document. It is merely a guide. It's good we make that point.
Yes.
It's not a mandatory document. It is a guide.
Okay.
We look at it as what you can call a legislative shopping center. It is where we look into, and it guides us on what we think are those major issues that are important for the Nigerian people. So we must not look at the legislative agenda as an end. It is merely a means to an end. Now, there is no way this legislative agenda of the House will succeed without the cooperation of other arms of government. It's good we take that into consideration. The legislature is a lawmaking arm. The executive arm, as you know, implements the policy. So we can go well out and do all the legislation we can, but it will still, at the end of the day, be the turf of the executive to implement those legislations. So it's very important that we separate the implementation of policies or programs or even acts of parliament. It's good we separate it from the parliament,
yes,
and that arm of government whose work it is to implement it.
Yes.
So we can do all we can as parliament, but at the end of the day, whether those policies will succeed or not will still depend on the executive arm. Some people have described policy implementation, because what we are talking about is policy implementation.
Yes, yes.
Some people have described it as the graveyard of policy making in Nigeria. So indeed, we will make all we can as the legislative arm, but at the end of the day, it is still the executive arm that will implement these policies. So there will always be need for synergy between the legislature and the executive, so that even our own legislative agenda, including even the executive's own agenda, can all come together for the good of the Nigerian people.
Well, Honorable, and I would agree with you, like you said, that the agenda is like a guide. More so, I mean, that's from the very onset, it's setting agenda for the House, as it were. And to that extent, I can agree. I would also agree with you that, and I think I made inference to that the bulk of what you do as lawmakers is to provide, the legislative framework, that would allow the executive to implement. But I think you can do more. I think you can do more as a House as well, because the House can also, using legislative instruments and oversight, query implementation of certain policies. And not forcefully now, but can compel the executive to deliver on some of these policies. I'm just saying, you have various legislative tools to carry out such functions, or to ensure that the legislature complies and implements policies to certain levels. That's basically what I was trying to drive out earlier.
Well, you have a point there. On a daily basis, if you watch deliberations in plenary, you see every day there are motions. At the end of every motion, you have resolutions. Now, these resolutions are well thought out legislative outcomes. But our constitution is not such that you enforce legislations. We don't enforce legislations. But these are prescriptive. These are things we think we have thought out as things that will be good for the Nigerian people. But at the end of the day, it is still the executive arm. Those resolutions are tailored, aimed at the executive arm that has the constitutional responsibility of implementation. So no matter how wonderful or beautiful our resolutions are, they will at best remain resolutions, expecting that the executive will feel compelled by maybe how sound those resolutions are and implement them. Now, you have also talked about oversight. Our democracy is such that no arm is actually superior to the other. They are expected to have coordinate jurisdiction. None is subordinate to the other. So because of that, there is no how we can actually enforce certain things. Oversight will be effective, oversight will be meaningful when there is also cooperation from the executive arm. So you go and oversight them, Office of Public Accounts will go to do their work, But you will find out that they need the cooperation of the Office of the Auditor General, for instance, or the Office of the Accountant General, for instance. So there must be that synergy from the two arms for these things to work out for the good of the Nigerian people. The Constitution is not such that we can enforce our resolutions on the executive or enforce our oversight. Yes, we do oversight. No matter how aggressive those oversights are, you still find out that the worst you can do is recommend for to the EFCC, for instance, or any of the other arms to prosecute. So you still see that the buck ends with the executive arm. So it is important at all times. And I think one of the key things about this legislative agenda, this 10th legislative agenda, is emphasis on proper cooperation and coordination with the executive arm. If you read that legislative agenda properly, you see that it ends with that ideal of a government that works in synergy and not in competition amongst the arms.
And hopefully that is what both arms of government will be driving at to achieve, because on the larger scale, we're looking at impacting positively on national development in Nigeria. And I am hoping that the House of Representatives, the 10th House of Representatives, which, by the way, is now the people's house. What it means is that my dreams and aspirations, you are not my direct representative at the House because I have mine from Oshimili there. But what it means is that you carry the dreams and aspirations of your people there. Just like mine does. And so you're a reflection of our collective dreams and aspirations. But then how do we now make this whole job easier? And that is one of the key things that this legislative agenda has said it will do. It has said, and it encourages members like yourself and belonging to committees as well to integrate into their work plan, some of these objectives that have been outlined in this legislative agenda. I know you belong to appropriation and maybe some other committees as well, but how will all of these work out in integrating, these core objectives, outlined in the 8 points that's been highlighted in the legislative agenda? How do you, at committee level, and if you would, by the way, maybe just give us an example or two. Like you talked about oversight and you mentioned the Office of the Accountant General and all of that. If you could perhaps do another example like that, can tell us how committees at that level are going or are willing to incorporate these objectives into their work plans, and just so that some of these objectives are achieved at the end of the day.
You see, every committee of the National Assembly, they have their work cut out for them. Essentially, their work is to oversight the various ministries, departments, and agencies. Their work is to get the best for the Nigerian people, more like having value for money appropriated to them. So that is the major, function of the committee system, which is the system we run as a National Assembly. So every committee knows what to do. And again, like I said, all this will always devolve on cooperation between the executive and the legislature. The legislature cannot work independently. The executive cannot work independently, including the judiciary. So all must work in synergy. So if, for instance, a committee wants to oversight, it's like the other day we invited service chiefs and they sent their assistants. We couldn't perform that particular assignment that day in plenary because we needed to speak directly with those who are accountable. So it takes that kind of cooperation for the committees to work properly. So if you still don't get that cooperation from the executive arm in the various ministries, in the various departments and agencies, our oversight also comes to nothing. And then the work of the committees also is imperiled. So we still need a system where we understand that the other depends on the other to perform maximally. The National Assembly has been described as the gatekeepers of the National Treasury.
Yes.
What it means is for the ministries, departments, and agencies to breathe in terms of funding, it has to be appropriated, it has to be authorized by the National Assembly. So that leaves the National Assembly with a lot of responsibility because you are spending public funds. What it means is the same people you are spending their money, we represent them. We want to know how that money is spent.
Indeed.
We need to know if we need to improve on certain laws that are guiding you. We also need to even check whether you as a ministry or a department or an agency, whether the Nigerian people still desire you or you should be scrapped. These are all things we find out when we do oversight. But you find out that oversight is often seen by the executive as unnecessary intrusion into their affairs. So you find out that you invite a ministry or agency or a department for oversight. They do all manner of things to evade effective interrogation of their actions and activities or how they have spent money. So my take on this question is that at all times, since the executive arm is working for the good of the Nigerian people, the legislative arm same, the judiciary same, they should work in coordination. That is what the Constitution expects from a tripod or a tripartite separation of powers. It's not so that everyone works as it desires. No, there must be a harmonious integration of all the activities, either executive activities, legislative activities, or judicial activities. So no arm is completely separate. We will all depend on the other so that we can work for the good of the Nigerian people, which is the bottom line, more or less.
Honorable, unfortunately, we do not have plenty of time to continue this conversation. I wanted us to pick at some of these key issues or these guides. Let me go back to using your words now, guides. As they've been outlined here, there are 8 of them. But we will take up this conversation some other time and dissect these guides one after the other and see the kind of bills perhaps, the kind of motions perhaps, using scenarios now, that we can create to drive home this point. Honorable, I would like to thank you so much, Honorable Iduma Igarawe. I mispronounced your name earlier. Honorable, would you, I know you're from Afikpo or that region. How is it pronounced properly?
Igarawe.
Igarawe. I would not miss it.
Yeah.
Igarawe. Honorable, thank you so much. A member representing Afikpo North and the federal constituency of Ebonyi State. I would like to thank you so much. Of course, we introduced you earlier as Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Appropriations. It's been good having you on our program. I would like to wish you and your colleagues plenty of luck and hope it all works well for us as a nation. Thank you so much indeed for coming on Insights.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Moving ahead, I would like to link my next conversation to something that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said a while ago. Actually, sometime in September, while addressing Nigerians based in India. This happened on the sidelines of the G20 summit, which took place in India at the time. The president said, and I would like to quote, he said, "We are here to present a new future to you, a future of a country that is so rich, endowed, and highly populated, very dynamic, unique in its culture, tradition, and ethnicity. That is what will make our prosperity possible. If only we can make use of our diversity for prosperity." End of quote. And so my next conversation will attempt to establish the correctness of the president's assertion that our prosperity derives directly from the diversity of talent and culture from across Nigeria. And again, we are tapping into that to boost tourism in Nigeria, make our country a major tourist hub in Africa. Gabe Honor is my guest. He's the Executive Chairman, Cross River State Carnival Commission 2023, and he joins me to discuss the promising issue of tourism in Nigeria. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Nandi. It's good to be here again.
Yeah, good to have you back on Insight. It's been a bit. I just quoted the president on the Clarem call for the full optimization of talent, culture, and our diversity to boost Nigeria's tourism economy. Clearly, we've been on this for decades now, but do you think, that is one of the required steps needed in adopting, or if that is perhaps the part of an approach, and if it's the right one towards building a dynamic tourism sector for Nigeria?
For me, the first thing I'd like to do is to give kudos to His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic, for this great thought. A people cannot undermine her culture. A people cannot undermine her people, her active population. And the active population is actually the youths. Today, Afrobeats is making the whole world proud. Today, cultural industries is the in thing. They are now commodified. It is no more arts for art's sake, but arts as a commodity. And this is what the president is trying to hone in our young talents. Already the kids have taken it into their hands. Mostly out of this country, we are known for Afrobeats. We are known for our creativity. We are known for Nollywood. I am humble enough to say that after Afrobeats is Nollywood, after Nollywood is Carnival Calabar. And that is what we saw in the turn of the millennium, by taking on this subsector to build on the people, to build on the youths, to build on our culture and our heritage. And I think the president has taken the right step, even to the extent of creating a Ministry of Creative Economy. Yeah. What can you do without putting the self in front? If you better the self, you better the nation.
So, I mean, you've just talked about creating a distinct ministry now for culture and creative arts. Are you perhaps one of those who think that is also a good thing for the industry, as it were? I mean, having these two, culture and creative arts, stand alone ministries?
The truth is that policy direction is critical in third world.
Indeed.
We keep saying that after God in third world is government. And government must also act as a catalyst. Government must act as the pathfinder for the private sector to follow, even though it rests on the private sector to take it, protect it for sustainability, and lead on with it.
Sure.
Designating a dedicated ministry as the creative economy is therefore understanding that to develop this sector, you must be deliberate. Then the Ministry of Tourism itself will lead it as finished product to market, the outcome or the dishing that we're going to come from the creative ministry. And I think this is one of his sucker punch. The young people who were running away now, we don't have any choice. If you are you turn around every corner in this country now, you see kids with telephones telling you that they're creative content organizers. It is a move in the right direction. So I believe the Creative Economic Ministry is just here at the right time. It will boost the effort of tourism. It will boost the effort of the low-hanging fruit we've been talking about. The kids need to be reassured. And again, access to the enabling environment which will be created by the government is what this ministry has to focus itself on. And we are having an oversupply of what will make this happen.
Indeed. Indeed. And earlier on you referenced the dominance of some of our creative art sector. You talked about Afrobeats. I would like to ask you a question, and I'm sure you've seen some of these manifestations. I have seen some cases, I'm sure you've seen some as well. The impact of dominant culture often manifesting as cultural appropriation. Sometimes we even see the branding of African heritage by some foreign groups. I understand the multifaceted impact of digital transformation on culture generally, and I'll give you an instance, and I wonder if and how well, cultural policies can be adapted to meet challenges posed by this digital transformation to support indigenous markets and tourism subsector. There's this dominance. And I don't know, sometimes I see certain things, like, I'll give you an example of Afrobeats now. And I can tell you that some people somewhere are claiming already that Fela and Afrobeats emanated from them and not from Africa yet. How then do we, engender cultural appreciation rather than cultural appropriation?
Well, this brings us to the issue of dynamism and the evolution of the sector. Cultural statistics, one.
Yes.
Codifying the cultural product, two. And of course, marketing. Nobody can cook this good meal and hide it. So we have to be deliberate. Okay. There are channels of sales. There are channels of organization. And I'm sorry, we have to take from China. They declared a decade the year of cultural revolution. And the UNESCO said, everyone go back home. Dig from your culture. Well, how can we change things? Today we are in the age of AI. Today we are in the age of big data. Today we are in the age of e-surveys. If you do not take it in the deliberate steps, you're going to lose it. And this is what we did in Cross River State. In the turn of the millennium, the young leadership led by His Excellency Governor Donald Duke at the time decided to home into this subsector that, yes, we don't have oil, though we are in the Niger Delta. But if we do well by harnessing the lucrative opportunities in a creative economy, which is our cultural heritage, those around us will come and start spending their money. Today, we are just not only #1 in Nigeria, but we are #1 in Africa, and that's why we call it Africa's biggest street party. What did we do? First, our 3 unique areas of focus: product development, human resource and capacity building, and of course, commercialization. What are the 3 pillars of a successful tourism initiative arising from the creative sector? The products, the community, and of course the stakeholders. If you don't take the community along, you're going to lose it. And who are the community? The youths, the women, the aged. There's something for everybody in this sector, especially if we begin to look at it as business. And yet, this is what the president has decided to hammer on. We must begin to look at this now as business. We cannot continue to dish this for free. For me, we all knew the role Fela played in this great music today. Our kids have introduced the fusion of it. Today, NBA final, UEFA Cup final, you find Nigerians. If you are in a cruise ship experience in Europe or in the Caribbean, it's all Afrobeats. If you are in a nightclub in Europe or America or in the Caribbean, it's all Afrobeats. It is not who started it, who is enjoying it, who is taking the money. Where is the money going to? Who is getting the IGR? This is all a responsible government will be looking forward to. Create the enabling environment and let the IGR come in. Let the chiefs come in, you know. And I believe the time is now. It is never too late to try. We have our neighboring European countries like Turkey. They started being serious in their tourism in just 1985. The moment you decide to say you want to get it right, step on a few toes and go back and dot your I's and cross your T's. What are the building blocks that you must get right to get our young ones to begin to benefit from this subsector?
You know, sorry to interject, but I like how you've narrowed, you know, this whole thing down to, well, Africa's largest party, which is, of course, you reference as the Calabar Carnival. Yeah. And you've somehow morphed the imperatives for, you know, cultural statistics, you know, into the discourse and linked that to creating marketing, branding, and innovations and all of that. I'd like for us to push that conversation a bit further. And perhaps you can tell me how exactly, in terms of using cultural statistics now as a tool for effective planning, how that can be deployed to enhance marketing and branding. You know, branding especially, taking into consideration the new economy and the globalization, which involves technology, creativity, human capital, and capacity as well for innovation. Can you perhaps, again, use Calabar now, maybe cite an example, your carnival, which is the largest street party, as an example of how this has played out?
Yes. I tell you something, I like to create or offer this as our team. Harnessing the lucrative opportunities in a creative economy. Discuss. Use Carnival Calabar as the yardstick or the
It is now a thesis.
I tell you. So this is it. You look at an area when you are doing what they call the product development framework.
Yes.
What is it that these people love? What is it that is the low-hanging fruit? Okay. What is it that can engender that prefix, the buy-in of the community? Because if the community don't take it as their own, you're wasting your time. The community must first have that.
So there has to be community ownership.
Exactly, and that conviction. Cultural statistics, data collection, they call it big data in some places. Now they call it e-survey under AI. To plan, you must have numbers.
Yes.
To plan, you must plan. To plan, you must plan, you know. So you look at those different stuff and segmentation. Where would people visit you? People are not interested in your tradition. They just want to see authentic culture.
Yeah.
What will give them the wow effect? What will give them the wow return on visit? You can decide to market mice as your icon, meetings, incentives, conference and events. But I tell you, cultural heritage, the carnival itself, remains one of our own biggest pull factor. When the tourists arrive or attendees or the audiences arrive, they take on the unbeaten tracks of tourists, the unknown destinations that they got to know in the course of attending Carnival Calabar. So you need to identify an area that is going to be a win.
Okay.
A win and a win. And of course, like I said earlier, we must be deliberate in this sector. And the first step is training, the second step is training, the third step is training. And I said earlier, with the creation of the Ministry of Creative Economy, I saw the wonderful 8-point agenda of the great minister. I believe if we will get it right from the boardroom, which is the proper deliberate planning, to implementation, because in tourism we live under the sun.
Yeah.
In tourism we live in the creeks. In tourism we live in the destination themselves, to give the teeming arriving tourists, that great welcome, that great warmth, which is our own nature. But for us, what Carnival has done for us is that we decided to take advantage of our area of competitive advantage. God's gift to us, the warmth, the welcoming. We offer our guests the best meals so that they can remember to come back.
Are you getting returns on your investment as far as Calabar Carnival is concerned?
I have always asked, how much can any government, can any responsible government pay for peace? The youths, the women, all get engaged from September, sometimes June, July. With the moment the Carnival team is unveiled, everybody begins to get ready. The hotels are getting ready. The costume makers are getting ready. We go as far as Port Harcourt and Abound on the Shah to buy and to bring tailors. The people doing makeup, people learning how to do wire bending for the big floats on the road. Then there is an unofficial truce between the bad boys and the law enforcement. you go home rehearse, go out rehearse, go back home tired, and you go home straight to rest. The security men are having a holiday. If you're not making trouble, they will not arrest you. So there's an unofficial truce. And I've always asked, how much can you pay for peace? But we have received our return on investment, and counting, because we are receiving our IGR. The city is clean, the city is warm, the city is welcoming, and we believe we are going to get it better.
There's absolutely no doubt that the Calabar Carnival continues to help to shape Nigeria's, tourism economy. And I know I've heard you and seen you argue in the media over time, that I'm not so sure how old Calabar Carnival is, 20-something, I'm sure. It's over 21 years, I should
21
guess.
years.
21 years old, so I hit it right there.
The COVID year robbed us of two performances.
Okay, great. Can you perhaps give us a sneak peek? You've called this year's theme Season of Sweetness. Is that perhaps related to the governor's nickname? I know he's called the Sweet Boy or something.
The Sweet Prince.
The Sweet Prince, yes.
It's a whole potpourri. We were lucky to have a son of the soil, a former senator of the Federal Republic, with his people's first mantra. And he's just here at the time the carnival is being rejigged or reimagined. After 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, every strong tourism product undergoes a reimagining or rejigged. And this is exactly what he's trying to do. He's introduced and developed a team which is Season of Sweetness. Truly, COVID did not spare any home. COVID did not spare any nation. COVID did not spare any village. It is time for humanity to re-aggregate. It is time for humanity to come together again. It is time for humanity to show love to one another. This is exactly what the governor is trying to offer, that we need love now than ever.
Well, we're actually out of time now, but I know you touched on this very briefly while speaking about some of the components, and elements would need to grow our tourism economy. And then towards the end of your last response, you touched on the issue of security. But I just wanted to point out that in expanding and building our tourism economy, we would also need to work on security as well, because this would create some sort of assurance to tourists, not just within the country, but from outside the country into Nigeria as well. Gabe Honor, Executive Chairman, Cross River State Carnival Commission 2023. I'd like to thank you so much for coming on Insight. It's good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully you will be here sometime real soon. I mean, this is a sector that is ever growing. I mean, the potential, of course, is massive. So, of course, from time to time, we will be calling on you to speak on this issue. Thank you so much for coming on Insight.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Omori is up next.
The government of Saudi Arabia has pledged to invest in the revamping of Nigeria's refineries, as well as provide financial support to sustain foreign exchange reforms. Saudi's Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, made the commitment at a bilateral meeting with President Tinubu on the sidelines of the Saudi-Africa Summit in Riyadh. To support the central bank's ongoing reforms of Nigeria's foreign exchange regime, the Saudi government will make available a substantial deposit of foreign exchange to boost Nigeria's forex liquidity. Prince bin Salman also commended the economic reforms being implemented by President Tinubu and expressed commitment of the Saudi government to supporting these reforms to enable Nigeria to reap full benefits. Well, actualization of these initiatives is a focus, and Dr. Sani Haruna, a financial expert, will speak to us. Dr. Haruna, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with your assessment of the summit.
Okay, to begin with, good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you.
To begin with, yeah, the summit, it's at the instance of Saudi Arabian government, and it is important to note that it is an offshoot of their vision. So they are currently implementing a vision for the country, and it is called Vision 2030. It is a complete vision for the country in terms of transforming the country, financial, health, physical, infrastructure, a complete package. So while they are implementing this summit, it's part of a larger plan. So they called on African leaders, African countries to come and discuss with them areas of mutual interest, where they can support Africans, where they can invest, and where they can also benefit. So while it is a laudable development for Africans and indeed Nigeria to participate in the summit and also to harness different opportunities, we don't just need to sit down and wait for other countries to come us in, to come us out, because we were just reacting to their invitation while they are implementing their own national agenda. Yes. So it's a good thing that we are participating, and it's a good thing that we have things that we are going to benefit from. It's a good thing, for example, for Nigeria to even, well, currently we are in a FX crisis, to say, oh, they are going to give us substantial amount of FX to help our current liquidity challenges. But the question is, what plan do we have for our own country? And what plan, what vision do we have for our own country for us to say, oh, rather than wait for other countries to invite us, we will be the one to invite them so that we can direct strategic areas where we want them to come and partner with us.
All right, you know, so many commitments are made at the International Forum, and bringing all of them to fruition is key. Like you asked a very big question. How do we drive the implementation?
I give you example. As part of the Saudi Arabia Vision 2030, it's to raise their share of non-oil exports from 16% to 50%, right? And they also want to increase their public investments. Their public investments, they want to increase it from the current 600 billion South African rand to over 7 trillion South African rand by 2030. Now, this is a plan. If they identify Africa and call for a summit, it is because they have seen a market. They have seen an opportunity where they export their non-oil products, where they can increase their share of public investment. The FX amount of the amount of FX they want to support Nigeria with, for example, it's not free. It's a part of investment. So to them, that is implementation. But to us, do we even have the plan? Because it is very, very difficult for us to implement a plan that is not ours. Right? You only implement a plan that you have designed. So if you don't plan, you can't implement. So if Saudi Arabia plan and they are now implementing, and as part of the implementation, we come into the picture. So my recommendation to Nigeria and to Nigerian government is, it's a good thing we are collecting these monies, it's a good thing we are participating, but is it part of our national plan? If any. If it is not part of our national plan, how do we then plan, begin to plan? Because it's better late than never. How do we then begin to plan in such a way that we can steer our national development such that we can go and meet Saudi Arabia, we can go and meet any other country and say, oh, come, we are inviting you for a summit. And what we are discussing is our own plan. How do you take advantage of our own huge market?
Prince Salman also highlighted agriculture, renewable energy as areas needing investment interest for Saudi Arabia in Nigeria to help the country attain food and energy security. How can Africa leverage these opportunities to bring visible change in these critical areas? Because this is not just extended to Nigeria, other African countries as well.
You see, if you read the Vision 2030 for Saudi Arabia, all the claim, all the statements that the prince have made, it's not accidental. And he wasn't saying them because he has just met with the Nigerian president or he has just met with the African leaders and then he's saying them. It's part of a larger plan. In Nigeria, for example, we have energy challenges. We have energy challenges. We don't have stable power. We don't have, we have a lot of energy challenges. So renewable energies, we have different sources of renewable energies that we can, as a country, harness and solve our energy problems, right? Solar, for example, we have wind, we have, so if we are receiving these investments, it's going to help the country to address their energy challenge. The problem still lies. What are we doing as a people, to engineer development from within? I give you an example. In Nigeria, if federal government or various state governments take it as a matter of priority that they want to fix the energy problem and they invest through the Ministry of Power from Naira investment, of course, some of the equipment they are going to certainly be imported and all that. But if they invest in areas of renewable energies and do them in clusters in terms of regions, in terms of states, in terms of districts, senatorial districts, local government, wards, and all this, now to say, oh, we are going to decentralize the power generation and distribution using different sources available based on the different regions' competitive advantage, because some other regions are more endowed with solar light, sunlight than other regions. Some other regions have water, some other regions have wind. So if we do it based on the areas our competitive advantage, as nature endowed us with, right? And then we start from there. That is a conversation around engineering this development from within. But within this country, there are companies, indigenous companies, that are interested in renewable energies, right? And all they need is government support in those areas. We have the market. Even if Saudi is coming, it's a good thing because we are going to receive a lot of dollars when Saudi or any other country is coming. But we first need to fix the basics before any government coming. We need to fix the basics. And what are the basics? Legal framework, our own infrastructure, even if they come and start our distribution, how do we deal with issues of collections? How do we deal with issues of the citizens even understanding what the government is trying to do and even believing what the government is doing and even trusting that the government is actually going to do what they say they are going to do?
Okay, Dr. Sani, quickly, should these agreements signed work for Africa and Nigeria? Because we are Nigerians. How do we sustain the gains quickly?
We pray that it works because I
because
would
we
drive,
have to be optimistic.
Yes, I would drive a tremendous amount of joy in seeing it that it works. And the current president, President Bola Tinubu, is showing some commitment, right, in terms of driving certain strategic initiatives that will make things work. So we pray that it works, and we are praying that he sustain what he's doing, the momentum. How are we going to make it sustainable? By virtue of our own demographic advantage. We are likely going to be sustainably the target of some of these world powers, world largest economies, because we have the population, we have the market, so they will continue to come, right? It is now, the onus is now on us to, as they are coming with their own interest, we also strategize agenda, right? So if we utilize this thing very well, that means tomorrow we can still go back and say, oh, hey, we have this plan in this area, agriculture, please come. We have this plan in this area, health, please come. Education, please come. And they will continue to come, right? Yes. So the onus is still on us to do the right thing. And I believe that we are going to do the right thing with the current president, with the way he wants to tackle the fiscal and monetary challenges that we have. And with, we expect some level of financial discipline. So hopefully, yes, it's going to be sustainable.
All right, Dr. Sani Harun, I want to thank you so much for your thought-provoking responses to the issue before us, and we hope the partnership would really serve humanity. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
And that's it on this episode of the program. To join us same time next week for more on Insights. My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.